Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be doing our very first color review. We're going to be starting with white. This is just the easiest way for us to go about doing these set reviews. It makes it easier for people to find specific cards that they're looking for. I know I get a lot of comments about alternate ways of doing this, starting with red-black, starting with multicolor, and there are good reasons to do it every single way, but I just wanted to address that because I do get those comments all the time. Personally, I think that the multicolors are the harder ones to evaluate because you don't know how supported those themes or signpost cards are, but a lot of people want to start with the signpost cards because they think it helps evaluate the particular colors. I find it personally a little bit easier the other way. So we're going to go ahead and start with white. These are like semi-blind reviews. Yanks and I will be doing bonus update reviews throughout the set. Maybe 2 is my goal, where we'll just talk about cards that are over or underperforming what our expectations are from today. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Our very first card, card 1 of 200 and a bajillion, which is Adeline. It is a legendary creature with X4 power for 3 mana. It is vigilant. Its power is equal to the number of creatures you control, so that's a pretty interesting thing we see quite often in white creatures. And whenever you attack, for each opponent, create a 1/1 human creature token that is tapped and attacking that player or a planeswalker they control.
Yeah, so you've got a 3 mana 1/4 that can attack as a 2/4 the first time it can attack, because you're going to create that token at minimum. Obviously, it can be more if you have other creatures. So your stats are already kind of where you want them to be. Throwing vigilance and upside, and spreading out over numerous bodies. You've got yourself a pretty good card here.
Yeah, if you're playing this on 3, it's, basically bare minimum stats, but it has that added bonus for vigilance. So this is definitely a playable card. This is never going to get cut. I don't think that necessarily is on its own here. If you're playing it on turn 3, it's better than like premium removal, but it's going to be getting better as you, progress the game, get more creatures on board. If you can protect it in any meaningful way, it's definitely pretty interesting. I actually like this card a lot for White Weenie, even for like constructed. It also has that EDH text for each opponent. So if you like spread out your attacks, you get a little bit more bonus there as well, but we don't really care about those formats. What are we thinking 1 to 5 here, Yanks?
I've got this at like a 3/5. One thing I like about this card, is we saw just looking at one of the cards in our mechanics video, is that green-white looks to have some sort of human theme, which we already see a token maker here, so you might have some human go wide, which would help this card out a lot.
Yeah, there's the human go wide stuff. We've seen a fair amount of like go wide token synergy, other things, a lot of sack outlets and things too. So overall, I think this is a pretty good card. I think in any average deck, it's going to be about a 3/5 with some upside.
Yeah, it definitely has the ability to be higher if you get the right synergies.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to the Ambitious Farmhand. This is a Coven card, which we talked about earlier in our introduction set. So Ambitious Farmhand is a 1/1 for 2 mana. It enters the battlefield. You may search your library for a basic plains card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. For Coven, colorless white, you can transform it. Activate this ability only if you control creatures with 3 different powers. And when you transform it, you're transforming it into a 3/3 lifelinker. Straightforward text. Definitely, a 3/3 lifelinker for 2 mana is pretty spicy, but it takes a little while to get there.
It takes a little while to get there, and you have to invest another 3 into it.
That's true.
But that being said, you get one of those back from searching up a plains. Not in terms of ramp, but in terms of being able to find another land. It's a pretty decent card. It's nothing super exciting.
I agree with that. It is above filler, but not something that is going to like bring home any game on its own.
Yeah, again, it's another human on both sides of the card, so that could be relevant. It's interesting that if you have multiples of these and one's already flipped, it works itself to count twice for Coven of the 3 you need. So it kind of synergizes with itself nicely.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm thinking like a 3.
Yeah, I think a 3 is good. I think it might be a little bit lower if we don't see a ton of human synergies, but we're 2 cards in and we got 2 humans, so we probably will see that.
Yeah, definitely. It feels weird. I feel like 3 is a little too close to the 3/5 from the previous card, because the previous one is a lot better than this. But like that one didn't seem like a 4, and this is maybe it's like closer to a 2/5 on this.
Yeah, this is a 3 that could be worse, and that's a 3/5 that could be better.
Okay, I agree with that. Let's go ahead and move on, guys, to the beloved Beggar. This is a 2-mana 0/4 human peasant. So we are, what, 3 for 3 on humans here. It has Disturbed, which is casting it out of the graveyard. Check out the introduction review. For 6 mana, 4 white. You can play it from your graveyard. It turns into a 4/4 flying Vigilance, and then it goes into the exile if it's killed from there. So you can't get it multiple times, but you are basically kind of getting this sort of 2-for-1 where you could use the 0/4 as like a sack outlet type sack mechanic card. And then you are getting a big beater. A 4/4 flying with Vigilance can end a game on its own, as we've seen with like Sarah Angel type cards. So, I mean, there's nothing not to like about this card, right?
The only thing I don't like is it's hard, unless you have sack outlets, it's hard to get any value really out of the front side. Like, even if it was like a 1/3, you'd have a chance to trade for something and get some extra value. It's probably just serving as a chump blocker to get it into the graveyard. But that's okay. I mean, you're still getting your value on the back half of the card. That's just the only spot it kind of falls a little bit short.
I feel like a lot of times if your game plan is to win with like a big 4/4 flyer, if you're like in the more like Selesnya type decks, or even like maybe a black-white more control-y flyers deck, or even blue-white, oftentimes your biggest downfall is like dying to the Boros aggro decks, and the 1/4 really prevents that from happening. And then the one time they get the combat trick to get through that 0/4, because an 0/4 is quite a wall that is going to stonewall a lot of those more aggressive decks. Oftentimes they have to use their run amucks or their whatever to kill that, get the aggro in. I mean, you're still getting a 1-for-1 on that situation specifically. I still kind of like it.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad card. I mean, I think your 6 mana 4/4 flying Vigilance you'd play on its own.
Yeah.
Now, it's not just a bonus here because you can't just play that from your hand. You have to go through some hoops to get there.
Yeah, if you draw it late and they have like a big flyer that you can't deal with, like you can't play this as a defense, they just go over it and then they kill you anyway.
Yeah, so it has some, the disturbed part, the fact that it's on the backside of it, it's a backside of a card that you can't cast from your hand that way, has its upsides and downsides. Better with self-mill, better with sacrifice, worse as the top deck.
Yep, and better against aggro, worse against like a flying mirror match, where it's going to probably just get stuck on the ground. Yep. Okay, so score-wise, what are you thinking?
I have this card a little bit, right around the same as the last one, like a 3.
Okay, I have this one at a 3 as well. I ended up going with 2/5 on that last one.
Okay, yeah, I think they're both in the same ballpark.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next card. Yanks, you take this one away.
All right, here we have Bereaved Survivor. It's 2 and a white for a 2/1 human peasant. When another creature you control dies, transform Bereaved Survivor. When you transform it on the backside, you get Dauntless Avenger, which is a 3/2. That whenever it attacks, you can return a creature with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped and attacking. So this is an extremely aggressive card.
That is very aggressive. I mean, it's 3 mana for a 3/2 on the backside. Another creature you control dies. Yeah. So it's happening on turn 4 or later that it's attacking because it's, something else has to die and this has to no longer have summoning sickness. So it's likely to get to trade pretty easily. It won't be hard to kill this, when it's attacking. But if you're super aggressive in a Boros type deck where you have like some cheaper removal or something, this could be insane.
Oh, and it's so synergistic with itself, right? You play the 3 mana 2 and you're playing an aggressive deck. You hopefully have a 2-drop that attacks and dies. Now you have that 2-drop in your yard to get back.
Yes.
Like, it's so easy to transform this into right. I mean, again, you're not going to really want to play this card in a control deck, but in your aggressive decks, this card is fantastic.
Yeah, and the important part about this being an aggressive deck too is that you actually need a pretty high level of 2-drops to make this work. But if you do have it, if you have some good combat tricks to protect this, so like you bring back in your creature, they block this instead of that creature because, they're wanting to prevent you from doing this again, you give it first strike, remove their card, whatever the case may be, and then you just get to have this reoccurring thing. But you really need to have a lot of 2-drops to make it work, or to make it insane, I should say. It's going to be good in any of your decks because you're always going to be running like 2 or more, 2 to 4, I'd say.
This is the type of card that just decks that are full of removal spells just do not match up well with, because you probably need to spend them on something more threatening than a 2/1, but then this flips and now they're probably getting it back. Like, it's just, either you're taking a bigger beating from the 3/1 that's attacking you or the 3/2 that's attacking you, or you've got to try to prevent yourself from getting 2-for-1. That makes it a really tough choice for your opponent.
Definitely. I don't think this is quite as good as our first card, that rare. So like I'm in the 3 ballpark.
Yeah, I think it could be as good as that card in the really aggressive decks, but on the whole, it's not, because it's just way worse than your blue-white decks. You're assuming blue-white is control-y like it usually is.
Yeah, I think they both have some payoffs. One's go wide, one's more aggressive. I think the more removal you have to pair with this, it has some more upside if you're going to be able to trigger that ability more than once.
Yep, but we are also 4 for 4 on humans.
All right, well, this can't be a human because it is not a creature, so we finally broke our streak. We have Blessed Defiance, an instant for 1 white. Target creature you control gets +2/+0, gains lifelink until end of turn, and when that creature dies, create a 1/1 flying spirit token. I'm glad that spirits have flying again, because that was confusing.
Agreed.
I did not like that. So yeah, Blessed Defiance is an okay combat trick. It replaces itself with a flyer, kind of. So if your creature is trading, then that's a 1-for-1. And then this is turning into a flyer, kind of. So, I mean, a 1/1 flyer is not necessarily worth an entire card, but if your creature is trading up, it's just got some nice bonuses. It's an okay combat trick. I'm not excited to play a ton of these. I think it's playable, but only in the most aggressive decks.
Yeah, I agree with that. You can always get something out of a 1-mana combat trick. Like, as much as I'm not usually high on combat tricks, if I'm going to play them, 1 mana is where I want to play them.
Yes.
But, it can swing a race with the lifelink. You can get that. You can maybe get a kind of a 1-for-1 back if you're 2-for-1ing yourself with the combat trick, but you get the flyer back. So yeah, not a huge upside, but it's going to have its place.
Yeah, so I mean, at its worst, I think like I said, it was kind of replacing itself with that flyer, so it has less downside than most combat tricks if you get blown out. Because a lot of times what they'll do is they'll just, in response, remove the creature in response to your combat trick. If you use it to like trade up or block or whatever, then this is still getting its value in that little 1/1. So it kind of mitigates some of those risks of running combat tricks in general.
Well, it's still really bad if they do it in response, because then this fizzles and you get nothing.
Yes, if it's in response, for sure.
But yeah.
Ooh, I'm thinking like a 2?
Yeah, I think it's a 2.
In a more aggressive deck, it's going to be a little bit better, but I mean, the average decks are just not going to want to run this. All right,
agreed.
Borrowed Time, guys. 3 mana for an enchantment. When Borrowed Time enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Borrowed Time leaves.
Yeah, it's your Banishing Light effect. Always pretty much white's best removal spell.
Yeah, I do like that it says permanent. So this, includes planeswalkers, which is pretty uncommon. It also can include other enchantments and things, which is always a really nice perk to have, actually. And thinking outside the box with this on things you can take is pretty important and will win you some surprising games.
Definitely, you can snipe equipment with this. You can get enchantments, curses, which we know already exist in this set. So
curses will be big. It's
definitely flexible.
I've actually, used this to kill another person, not this one specifically, but similar ones, right? Where you use this to hit their borrowed time to get your creature that will kill them, kind of thing. So it's cute.
Yeah.
These I think are always really good. What are we thinking score-wise? I think it's like between that 3-5. I'm tempted to give it almost a 4 because it is white's premium removal, but it's just never going to be as good as the red and black.
I think this specific type of effect is like the one spot where it is, unless you're in a set where people are going to be constantly running enchantment removal.
That's true. Some sets more so than others.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, bounce is bad, but you just get to replay it, so it's not like your pacifism or aura type effects where you lose the removal spell.
Yeah. Another key thing to note is that now that best of one is a thing that has never really been a thing previously, these are actually getting better and better because there is no second game to board in that enchantment removal, right? So it's getting a lot more value than it might have previously.
Yeah, definitely.
4, then, we think?
I like it as a 4.
All right. I'll let you take this one away.
Next up, we have Brutal Cathar. 2 and a white for a human soldier werewolf, a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield or transforms into Brutal Cathar, so when it goes from its backside back to the front side, exile target creature an opponent controls until this creature leaves the battlefield. And it has Daybound, our first one of these Daybound, Nightbound cards, and we'll see the backside, Moonrage Brute. 3/3 werewolf with first strike, ward, pay 3 life, and it has Nightbound.
So this is interesting. Most of the flip cards, I mean, they're not modals, but they are two-sided cards, are oftentimes the same color. So this is one of the very few that is actually two. But now keep in mind, guys, that that is color identity, but not actual color, because the only casting cost on this is for planes. So it's going to be just a white card.
Yeah, we see these cards like Banisher Priest type effects, you know, the creature version of the enchantment that we just saw, right? That exiles, in this case, only creatures, which is usually the case on the creature versions of this. You know, those cards are always good. What I'm trying to look up really quickly is what the rulings are, what the ruling is on this card.
So
for when it transforms.
I was wondering the same thing. So, because technically when it's a transformation is not necessarily the creature flavor-wise, it wouldn't be leaving the battlefield in any meaningful way, right? It just turns into a thing. So does that mean if you keep transforming it, do you just keep eating things and then until the creature is dead, then they get everything back? Is that...
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
That's super wonky.
A card transforming does not leave the battlefield. It's not like it goes into exile and comes back. If it was targeted with something, it keeps its targets. You know, it doesn't cause anything to fizzle. So
okay, so
in that
when
case,
it only does it one time, though.
Sorry, say that again?
It's only going to do it once, though, then, because the same thing applies when it flips back. It's not entering the battlefield. It just transforms.
Well, it says or transforms.
Oh, it does say or transforms. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, so you just keep flipping the card, eating their stuff. It's like a one massive, albeit easy to remove creature that like, whatever it called, like O-rings stuff, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to find if there's a official ruling on this. We probably won't get that till they do release the card notes this week, but I believe it does keep exiling and the other one doesn't come back since it never leaves the battlefield.
Nice. Play snakeskin veils, guys. Keep him safe. Eat all of their things.
Yeah, I'd be very curious to see the exact reasoning, because it doesn't leave the battlefield, but it also isn't on the battlefield anymore. There is nothing named Brutal Cathar there anymore at that point.
Yeah, but it is the same creature, which I don't know.
It's just interesting. I'm sure I believe that's correct. I'm just curious.
Yeah, it is weird. Like, there could be different interpretations of this in quite a few different ways, which is neat.
But there's a good question in chat that also is relevant on this card. The Daybound Nightbound thing is, this is a case where there's a pretty big drawback here, right? If you cast this when it's Nightbound, you don't exile anything.
Yes.
Because it enters as Moonrage Brute. It does not enter as Brutal Cathar.
Yes, you just have to wait until it flips back. When it goes Daybound, then you get the thing. But again, that's one of those situations where it could be a negative or it could be a positive. Maybe you're the white-red Boros Aggressor deck, and I just want a 3-mana 3/3 first striker that has some ward that also accomplishes my goal of like, okay, you could remove my big threat. All right, you're just helping me kill you faster. So like, yeah, I agree that that's most likely going to be a deficit, but also, I mean, I really like being very, very aggressive in my Boros decks, so.
Sure.
And then you flip it, and then you get to eat their stuff later anyway, which is kind of neat. I like this card a fair amount. I think it's 3, 5, 4.
I think this card's a 4 again. I mean, The only downside is it's vulnerable and it's pretty easy to remove.
It's very easy to remove.
You know, but that being said, if they can't remove it, and do you have any way to, you do have some control over flipping it back and forth and all that?
Yeah.
It's just going to slowly mow down their creatures.
Yeah, the first strike on the other side, too, it means that when you still have that creature locked down when it's on the Nightbound side, you're still possibly getting to attack in, depending on how big their board state is, and keep that protected, right? If they've got one creature or something that trades or is a 3/3 or less, then it's not like you have to not attack to keep their creature under lockdown. The first strike allows you to do both, which is really cool. Yep. All right, moving on, guys. We have the Candle Grove Witch, a 2/2 for 2. It is a human warlock with Coven. At the beginning of your combat, if you control 3 or more creatures with different power, this gains flying until end of turn. This seems really strong.
Yeah,
not like win the game on its own strong, but for a 2-drop, this is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's your bear with upside, right? It's good because it's a 2-drop that's good in the late game when you're more likely to be able to trigger Coven anyway.
Yes, I feel like this is slightly more, because I don't think the Coven is going to be super hard, especially in the white decks that are generating tokens and things. I give this a little bit more credit than just like a vanilla bear upside.
The only reason I say that is because the ability is it's an offensive only ability.
That's true. You can't block with this. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, on defense it's just a 2-mana 2/2, which is fine because on offense it's better than that. It's a human, which definitely looks to be a theme, and you can any 2-drop that has value in the late game is worth playing.
Yeah, definitely. I like this at a 2/5. It's more than filler to me. I mean, it's not winning the games, but I like this more than our standard bear upsides.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
All right, moving right along. We have a Candle Trap, 1 white mana for an enchantment aura. When this enchant creature has Defender, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt by this creature. And if you have Coven, pay 3, sacrifice the trap, exile. Enchant creature, activate only if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers. So we saw something similar to this in Theros, where you could pay an additional fee to then exile the card that you made not attack or block, which was the card with the shirtless men my mom didn't like.
Dreadful Apathy.
Yeah, Dreadful Apathy, that's it. So I like that it's a cheap thing that can kind of lock down a threat now, and then gives you an outlet to then kill it later before they find some sort of answer for it, like a flicker or an enchantment removal. This is going to be pretty decent for white.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that latter ability, like you said, in Dreadful Apathy. We saw the first part of this card, or a lot of the first part of this card on Guard Duty from Rise of the Eldrazi. Enchanted creature as Defender is not the best in white, just because all we've seen so far is aggressive cards, and they're probably going to be trying to block anyway. But it's 1 mana, and if they have something big and you can just delay their ability to attack you with it for a few turns until you can get Coven, that's pretty good. You can activate it instant speed, so you don't have to wait till your turn to give them a chance to disrupt your Coven.
Yeah. One of the other things that you can do, like a slight bit more flexible here, is if you are getting rolled by a more aggressive deck or a big green beats deck or something, you could put this on one of your little 1/1s and just kind of block. Wait, prevent all damage that would be dealt by. Never mind. I thought it was by and to, because that's usually the way that reads. Never mind. No bonus. Bad. Don't do it. It kind of made sense in my head the way that you could then exile it later. So I was thinking like it's just kind of a thing that sits there that you would then have to later deal with anyway, but it's not. Yeah, I like this card well enough. I think it's like nowhere near as good as the Borrowed Time, but I'm looking at like a 2/5.
Yeah, I think we're at 2/5. I think this is a card you're not going to want to have too many of in your deck, and there are going to be some very aggressive decks where this card just isn't good, but there are going to be plenty of decks that'll certainly run the first one of these.
I think there's a blue. You were saying that this doesn't make a lot of sense because you think that like white's been very aggressive. I think we've seen a couple of cards that are kind of blue-white flyer-esque, like the 0/4.
Yeah.
I feel like this is going to be a premium candidate for that.
Yeah, I think it's great in that deck. I think it's bad in red-white. It's bad. Bad in red-white. It's probably bad in green-white.
Yeah.
Not sure on black-white yet.
It's not good in red-white because you can't actually remove the thing like a pacifism would that allows you to continue getting your beats in. So any game that wants to go a little bit longer, if you've got some flyers, this is going to be the card for you.
Well, I guess one other thing to note, just because it's a 1 mana spell, trying to transform night back into day, being able to cast 2 spells in 1 turn, being cheap helps with that if you think you're going to want to do that fairly often.
Makes sense. All right, we have Cathar Commando. It is a 2 mana 1/3 with flash. You could pay 1, sacrifice it, destroy target artifact, enchantment. I like this card a lot already. 2 mana 3/2s are always kind of medium. Their abilities are either non-existent or useless. It has flash, which is already better than what we typically see. I might have said it wrong the first time. I don't even know. It's on the screen.
You said it wrong, but you said it wrong 2 different ways.
What? 3-1?
You started off with 1-3, and then you went to 3-2.
Well, because it's got 2 mana. Whatever. It is a 2 mana 1/3. Just ignore the words that come out of my mouth and just look at the thing. That's a good rule of thumb for this channel for always. Don't listen to me. I'm awful. No. So it's got flash, which makes it already better than what we're typically going to be seeing. And then it's got this nice little backup plan of being able to get that artifact or enchantment removal, slip it into your deck without actually having to dedicate any card space, which in a new world where we're playing mostly arena and the best EV for limited players is best of one premier drafts. This is going to be amazing because we don't have those extra games to be boarding in those removals after game 1. So this lets you kind of get the best of both worlds, and white is aggressive with humans, and this is all of those things. Check, check, check.
Yeah, we just saw in AFR how much Plundering Barbarian overperformed, and that could only deal with artifacts, cost 3 mana, and it could only do it when it entered, so you didn't have the flexibility to just play it to get your beats on it and still have that flexibility. Yeah, I love this card.
All right, so we'll go ahead and start back up here. So yeah, I like this card at about a 3. It's aggressive, and I really give it that nice bonus for, it's like a half point bonus for me for that built-in destroy artifact or enchantment option.
Agreed, and it has flash, so you can ambush a 3 power, 3 toughness creature with it as well.
Or you can sneak in a Covenant attack, which they won't expect, right? You flash it in on their end step, and then poof, you have Coven they might not have expected, especially if you only have like the 1 card, right? You play this on their end step, and then you play your other creature, and then you have it, which is a lot more unexpected than just having to play the 1.
Agreed.
All right, 3 it is. So we've got the Cathar's Call, which is another enchantment for 3 mana. Enchant creature has Vigilance at the beginning of your end step. Create a 1/1 human creature token. Oh, that seems like a lot of value if it survives.
Yeah, I kind of actually hate this card. It needs to stay alive for several turns to really be getting your value out of this. I feel like you're just going to get 2 for 1 all the time with this card.
Yeah, if you get a little bit of value right away in that if you have a clean attack, you get to be able to block on the way back, and you get that 1/1. So to me, that's not an entire card, but if it's staying around any longer than 1 turn, then you're getting your value's worth. So,
I mean, would you play 3 mana, make 2 1/1 humans?
If my other big thing that also had Vigilance for 2 turn, that like helped me, not make any situation a race situation that I'm just winning, right? It keeps like profitable blocks on the table at all times and lets you keep pressure high. Pretty good.
Okay. I would be shocked if I ever cast this card.
Well, you don't play cards with creature. You don't play decks with creatures in them. So yeah, I would too.
Well, that's a fair point. But...
So, I mean, every deck, this isn't going to go in all decks. Definitely not. It's going to go in decks with creatures that are harder to remove. If you have ward or if you're playing green as your secondary color, this is going to be a lot more reasonable. But yeah, I mean, I don't think this is a good card, but I think if it stays around for longer than a turn, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think any card that doesn't provide much when entering the battlefield, a little bit, but not much, and then requires multiple turns to get value, I think this card's unplayable.
I think it's borderline. I put it at like a 2-ish. I'm never going to be happy about it, but I'm sure it's going to make the cut in something.
Yeah, unplayable strong. There is certainly some uber human tribal deck that will play this card because the value is worth the risk of getting 2 for 1, but I think that's going to be very hard to find. Yeah,
it's a bit of a build around, but I mean, I don't think it's going to be impossible. There is so many go wide things in this format, and there's so many human things that I'm pretty happy with it. The 1/1 human also is going to be pretty key for Coven, I think. Getting a 1-powered minion on the board is going to be quite helpful. Some sack outlets. I'm happy with it. I'm not. Wait, that's not true. I'm not throwing my deck in the trash if I have to run this. This is a 23rd playable card in almost every deck except for the crazy synergy token decks.
Yeah, I'm probably playing an 18th land.
See, I don't play 18 land decks, okay?
I don't either. And I'd still probably play an 18th land.
Your decks have like 4 creatures in them. You can't run auras.
Why would I play as many as 4 creatures? That sounds like a lot.
You're the worst. Silly, dirty blue players. All right, I'm gonna let you take this one.
Celeste Sanctifier, 2 and a white for a 3/2 human cleric. If it's neither day nor night, it becomes day when this enters the battlefield. So it's not day bound, but it will make it day if we haven't begun that cycle yet. Whenever day becomes night or night becomes day, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one of them into your graveyard. So whenever the day-night cycle changes, you get basically some scry. Or surveil, I guess. Except that you have to put one in your graveyard.
Yeah, which I think because you're looking at 2, it's going to be fine to get rid of a land. Like, it's very rare that you're always going to maybe want to look at those 2 and reorder them, but like most of the time, one is going to be clearly better than the other. You're going to be able to put that one to the top and get rid of it. I think it's got some nice value. I don't think you're going to be losing much for its ability. And on its base stats, it's a 3/2, 4/3 mana. I think I said that one right. Very, very slow. And that's just like filler on its own with some fun stuff, I guess. It's nothing to write home about, but I like it.
Yeah, I don't think that's much of a drawback having to put one. The worst of the top two random cards of your deck is,
and it could be a whatchamacallit.
To your graveyard, and it could be a disturbed card.
Yeah, that one. Disturbed. Could be a disturbed card.
In which case you're basically putting that card
in your hand.
In the place you want it.
Yes.
You'd rather have it even better than your hand.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that. So yeah, you're thinning your deck, getting rid of the lands that you don't need, or getting lands that you need, whatever. Possibly getting disturbs. Your base stats are fine. I think it's like a 2/5. Even if your deck doesn't have a ton of like day-night synergies, like if you need the filler in your 3 slot, you still will get some like fringe benefit by just your opponents having those day-night synergies that you might not.
Yeah, I mean, we reluctantly play vanilla 3 mana 3/2s. This has an upside. It's a human. I'm fine with this card at like a 5.
What did you have it at?
2/5.
All right, same. Great. All right. So we have another flip card here, guys. This is a disturbed. This is the Chaplain of Arms. It is a 1/1 for 1 first striker with ward 1, disturbed, 3 colorless and a white, so 4 mana. And when you cast it for its disturbed cost from your graveyard, you get a 2/1 flying first striker with each creature you control has ward 1. And then you exile it if it were to die instead. So you don't get to keep casting it. Keep that in mind. I like this card a ton. What do you think?
I'm okay with this card. I don't think it's amazing, but I'm never a huge fan of the 1 mana 1/1s. But first strike, and if we see some sort of equipment or things like that, could be a decent card. It helps your coven. Ward 1 is just a little bit of an annoyance for an opponent, but I really like the backside of the card.
The backside's really good. That ward 1 is going to be pretty annoying. It's each creature, not each other, so like it itself is fine. And for 4 mana, getting a 2/1 flying first striker is not nothing either. That can definitely close out some games.
And sure, 4 mana is expensive, no question about that. But assuming you're playing this in a deck where the 1 mana 1/1 is useful, then you're basically getting it for free.
Yeah, if you have any sort of sack outlets, or, I mean, we did see, there's a lot of tokens. We've seen a 2/1 already in the format, and I imagine that there's going to be a fair amount of those types of X1 creatures.
I will say Ward 1 on a 1/1 feels weird, because are they really targeting the 1/1 anyway?
I mean, they are if they want not everything else to continue to have Ward for the rest of the game.
Sorry, the front side, I mean.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I'm indifferent about it having ward 1.
It's just a bonus.
Yeah. Maybe it's not even a bonus. Like, maybe I just want the dang thing to be dead anyway.
I'll pass on the ward ability. You can just kill it.
Is that an option? Can I, allow my opponent a discount?
You can accidentally miss your trigger in paper. Not so sure that works on Arena.
What are we thinking score-wise?
It's still relatively low impact, even though it's has some value. I like this at like a 2.5.
Okay, I have it a little bit higher. I like that backside a lot more, so I'm giving it a 3. I'm going to try to chug us along a little bit. We are on the seas and 40 minutes into this already. All right, we have the Larian Cathars. It is a 4-mana 3/3, a bit steep, and when it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white human creature token. So 4 power for 4 mana, that's actually not a terrible rate.
No, 4 mana for 4/4 over 2 bodies, both humans.
Yep.
That's great.
It's great for Coven, too.
Yeah, correct. Two different powers for Coven.
Great Coven enabler. I think this is a 3.
Yep. Easy, solid card you're going to play.
Moving right along, Curse of Silence. This is the white aura curse, so you enchant the player for 1 mana. The Curse of Silence enters the battlefield, choose a card name. Spells with the chosen name of the enchanted player cost 2 to cast more. Enchanted player, whenever a enchanted player casts a spell of the chosen name, sacrifice the silence. If you do, draw a card. So constructed, it replaces itself. If you know what they're playing, it sets them off tempo for playing it, which is kind of helpful, but then it replaces itself. So 1.
Yeah, it is completely unplayable and limited. I guess maybe if you see them in game 1 where they play 5 of the same card, you could bring it out of a sideboard in a best of 3 scenario, but that's about it.
Even then, they only do it 1 time, and then you get your card back, and then, I mean, it stops them from casting it for a turn or 2.
Yeah.
It's fine. All right, Dualcraft Trainer, guys. 4 mana 3/3 with First Strike and Coven. When you attack, blah, 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 blah. Target creature you control gains double strike until end of turn, which is a pretty interesting Coven thing. So I like that this, at the beginning of your combat, you don't actually have to attack. So you can give something double strike like a flyer and not risk this creature. If like they have like a 5/5 or something on the ground. If you don't want to make those trades, it's not like it's a when it attacks. It's not like a boast trigger. So the Coven is a little bit more flexible than we've seen in some of the more recent mechanics. But I like this card well enough. What do you think?
Yeah, 4 mana 3/3 First Strike is fine enough to play on its own. Nice Coven bonus. You're right, you don't have to risk it, so you can keep getting it turn after turn. Solid card.
What do you like it score-wise?
I'm gonna like a 2.5.
Okay.
It could be a little higher. It could be a 3 if you got enough like evasive creatures that you're getting in for a bunch of damage with, but I think 2.5 with some upside.
Yeah, I have it a little higher on the 3 side just because I'm seeing a fair amount of flying white spirits. So, and I'm seeing a lot of token generation, so it feels like Coven's going to be pretty straightforward, and white seems to be the go-wide strategy. So I like just giving like something dirtily double strike and then having it trade up and then be happy about it. That said, we're like a half point off, so it's fine. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna let you take this one.
Enduring Angel, 2 white, so 5 mana for a 3/3 angel flying double strike. You have hexproof, and if your life total would be reduced to 0 or less, instead transform Enduring Angel, and your life total becomes 3. Then, if Enduring Angel didn't transform this way, you lose the game, and it transforms into Angelic Enforcer. Flying, you still have hexproof. Power toughness equal to your life total, which theoretically is 3. And whenever it attacks, double your life total, and then it keeps growing.
Interesting.
This is a weird card. That being said, 5 mana, 3/3 flying double strike on its own, I'd probably play that.
Yeah, for 5 mana.
It's hard to cast triple white, but that's fine.
Yeah, that's not too bad and limited. If you're a 2-color deck, you're still pretty happy with this. It basically, if they don't kill this, it stops you from dying for a turn.
Yeah, you basically get a free, Angel's Grace that puts you at 3, and still leaves you with the 3/3 flyer that gains you life basically every turn after that. Now it does lose the double strike, but it attacks as a 3/3 and then becomes a 6/6 before they can block.
So what is this then? If Enduring Angel didn't transform this way, you lose the game. What is triggering that?
I assume that's if they kill it in response somehow. Or if there's something on the battlefield that prevents cards from transforming.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, that's true. So either preventing, but like if they can kill it in response, they can just kill it pre-combat likely. So it's pretty minor. Like I don't so know if this is coming up a ton.
I think it's probably more of a like constructed or commandery thing where you get all sorts of clones and copies.
Ooh,
because the copies can't transform.
Okay.
So it prevents you from having like Rite of Replication kicked on Enduring Angel and having a whole bunch of these.
Yeah. Still, I like this card. I mean, if they're not killing you, it's just going to stay a 3/3 double striker in the air, which is quite strong. I can't imagine the game will go on that many turns if that's just like not dealt with. And then
absolutely, yeah.
If they are killing you, then like, sure, you just then hit them back for 6, go to 6, and hope that they, and then play a blocker, and then just hope that that gets you back out of the hole. I mean, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, and just tack on, you have hexproof, which probably doesn't matter, but isn't nothing.
Agreed. I also like that the ability is upon attack, not damage to a player or something. So it's like it doesn't need to get in if they're sitting on like, a bunch of 1/1 flying spirits or something. You're not susceptible to then just being killed on the crackback. You're still gaining that double life total.
Yep, agreed.
It is a bit hard to cast, so I'm thinking like a 4.
Yeah, I've got it as a 4.
Fantastic. All right. This is the removal spell that everybody's talking about. This is an instant for 2 mana. Destroy target creature or planeswalker its controller investigates. Fateful Absence. The clue token basically lets your opponent draw a card if they pay 2 mana to sacrifice it. So that's sort of like the drawback of giving white such a powerful removal spell at instant speed for so little mana cost. I can definitely see why this is a rare. I'm pretty excited about this card.
Yeah, this card is great for limited. I'm pretty stunned with how excited people are for this card for constructed, honestly. I think it's good. Baleful Mastery didn't do anything, and it had the same effect. Now it's white, so that does matter a little bit, but I don't know. I think this card's a great limited card, but I'm surprised at the hype it's getting outside of limited.
I mean, someone in chat saying it's the best white removal since Swords, and I can kind of see that.
About 100 times worse than Path to Exile.
When was the last time we had Path?
No, I know. But everybody likes to say, the best thing since Swords. No.
But we haven't had a Path to Exile in a while, right?
Well, it's been a while, yeah. I think the card's great limited. It'll certainly see play. I'm not in any way trying to say it's a bad card. It'll see standard play. It's a good card. I'm just stunned at the hype.
Interesting. I still think it's pretty good. I'm going to give this a 4. I mean, the clue token is pretty bad, but I mean, for 2 mana at instant speed, that's tough to beat.
Yeah, I think this card is a great limited card. The rare times it gets rid of a planeswalker, you feel amazing.
All right, Flare of Faith. 2 mana, target creature gets +2/+2 till end of turn. If it's a human, instead it gets +3/+3 and gains indestructible. That's going to be not a 0 chance of that happening, right? Like everything is a human so far in white.
Yeah.
So that is not going to be. You could just cast this in response to a removal spell on one of your human rares or something, and it feels pretty good. At only 2 mana, I like this card a lot.
Yeah, I think the sheer quantity of humans we're seeing makes this card pretty good. Obviously, you're going to want to make sure you have them, but
yeah, I mean, at its worst,
that doesn't seem to be very hard.
If you have a few humans, like the upside on that, at its worst, is still a +2/+2 for 2 mana, which is definitely not something I'm excited about and is usually getting cut. Definitely. Like it's a 23rd playable card, but I think there's enough upside here for me to be pretty excited.
I agree. I think this card's very good, and I hate saying that about combat tricks.
Haha, take that. I'm going to give it a 3.
I think I'm still sitting at 2/5, but no, this is not Run Amok. Run Amok is terrible, chat.
Oh my gosh. Go home, Yanks. We're not friends anymore. Go ahead and
I
take
do
this
like
one.
this card. I think it's like a 2/5 to a 3, which is very high for the combat tricks. All right, Gavin Dawnguard is next. 1 white for a 3/3 human soldier with ward 1. If it's neither day nor night, it becomes day as this enters battlefield, so a clause we've seen before. Whenever day becomes night or night becomes day, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card with mana value 3 or less, put it into your hand, put the rest at the bottom of your library in any order.
That's a fair amount of upside.
Yeah. 3 mana, 3/3 ward on its own. I'm playing that card, especially as a human.
Yep.
And your white decks, especially if your human themed decks or tribal decks, are going to have plenty of creatures with mana value 3 or less.
Yeah, minimum of like 7 plus 6 if you aren't including this. So I mean, there's going to be a fair amount of things, and you're getting to dig at what the top 4 cards, which is a substantial amount of your deck. Yeah, I like this card. Even if you don't have a ton of day-night effects, there's a good chance that your opponent will. So you get 1 or 2 cards off of this, you're feeling really, really good. This feels like a 3/3/5 to me. Obviously, if you have some synergy yourself, it goes up, but on its own, it's at least 3/3 for 3 with ward. I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I think with the amount of cheap creatures we're seeing in white, I think it's a 3/5. There are going to be some decks where it's worse because you just don't have enough targets, but I think in a lot of decks, it's going to be very good.
Yep, I agree. 3/5 with some upside from there based on your day-night synergies.
Yep.
All right, Gavin Silversmith. It is a 2/3 for 4. All right, this text box better be good. Human soldier. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. Okay, it includes itself. So unfortunately, if you're playing him by himself, he doesn't get +2/+2, right? But he's at least a 3/4 for 4, which is kind of okay. And then it comes in with an extra counter.
Yeah, getting to pick and choose your counter targets is really nice for Coven.
That's true, yeah. Lets you kind of divide those things up a bit. The downside of him being the only creature you're having to play is bad, but
but even at the downside, we've played 4 mana 3/4s before. We're not happy about it, but
yeah, but they're usually venturing or doing something minimal.
Sure.
If this is 0, if that's the case.
I agree, but if that's the worst case scenario on the card.
Yeah, the worst case is you're missing a venture trigger or something similar. But the upside is a +1/+1 counter, an additional +1/+1 counter could be better than the venture.
Yeah.
I think it's fine. I mean, I'm not in love with it. I think it's like a 2/5.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a couple of 4 drops we've seen that I definitely think are better than this already with Clarion Cathars and Dual Craft Trainer, but I don't mind running one of these.
All right, Gavin Trapper, guys, moving us along. It's an 0/2 for 1 mana. 2 mana, tap target creature. My very first white Winnie deck as a child loves this card.
I love tappers in limited. Don't love tappers that cost 2 to activate, but
I also don't love tappers that don't at least have like a point of attack.
Yeah, you really don't want to attack with tappers anyway.
I mean, I have definitely swung with like the giant thingy more than once.
That's true. Yeah, I'm not saying never, but I'm more concerned about the mana cost than the lack of power. And 0 power could be an upside with Coven.
That's true. That does make Coven easier to hit for sure. There's less overlap there. I mean, this seems like filler to me.
Yeah, I don't think it's great. I think it's a 2 again. It's another human.
It's a good target to make sure we have something in play for for the 4-drop from before.
Yeah, like I said, I think I'll play this card, but I'm not picking it early. I'm not super excited about it.
All right, so 2?
Yep.
I personally would go closer to a 1/5, but the human is probably better than I'm giving it credit for. All right, we have Hedge Witch's Mask. This is a 1 mana artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1. Equipped creature can't be blocked by creatures with power 4 or greater. 2 mana to equip. I mean, 2 equip cost is kind of where I like to see my equips. 1 mana is pretty cheap. +1/+1 on all your stuff is fine. And we're seeing a ton of tokens, which makes this a little bit cuter if you are really upping your creature count through token generation. But in general, this is like not quite as impactful as I would like to see for an equipment.
Yeah, the cost is right. The equip cost is right. Just doesn't quite do enough.
If you're heavy on the synergies, I'm probably running this like if you're playing the rare that says every time you attack, make a 1/1. And like if you're able to just like kind of steamroll and go wide enough, like yeah, I'll play this as a 23rd playable card, but most of the time, probably not.
Yeah, I've got it at like a 1/5. There's a spot for it in some decks, but I'm not going to play it in most of them.
Agreed. 1/5 it is. All right, we have a Homestead Courage. This is a sorcery for 1 white mana. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It gains Vigilance until end of turn with flashback. I like the +1/+1 counters for Coven. Kind of help you fix those errors. It also has flashback. The Vigilance is kind of meh, whether that's handy or not, you know, gonna be situational. Too situational for me to be happy of like giving it any sort of boost for that ability. But 2 +1/+1 counters for 2 mana, it's okay.
Yeah, sorcery makes me really sad, but
I was going there next. Yeah, if this was a 1 mana for instant speed, sort of like a Snakeskin Veil, because like this is just worse than Snakeskin Veil, right? Because it's not instant speed.
By a lot.
by like a ton, yeah. Especially if you're casting it at instant speed, the Vigilance would be irrelevant anyway. That's probably why they gave it sorcery, but...
Yeah, it's not unplayable, right? You'll find uses for it if you're really trying to spread out damage wide and hit Coven, and it's so cheap, so you can use it to help trigger, you know, night back into day.
That's true. Yeah, night day triggers, that would be pretty sweet to make happen. But I think the major place where this is going to shine is when you have premium Coven triggers. You want to ensure that you're hitting. I mean,
we're only at H, and it's the 3rd best white combat trick I think we've seen.
Agreed. I like most of all the other. I think I like. Well, I don't know if I like the +2/+0 as well. Well, gave it flyer. That's true. I like that one better. I like flyers a lot. This is like a 1/5 to me.
Yeah, agreed.
Coven, maybe a bump, maybe give it a 2/5 if you got the Coven goods. All right. Yep. I'm gonna let you take this one.
Next up, Intrepid Adversary. 1 and a white for a 3/1 human scout with lifelink. When it enters the battlefield, you may pay one and a white any number of times. When you pay this cost 1 or more times, put that many Valor counters on Intrepid Adversary. All creatures you control get +1/+1 for each of those Valor counters on Intrepid Adversary. So there's a cycle of these 2-drop mythics, 1 for each color, that have that same ETB, pay 1 in a white or 1 in the color or 2 in the color some number of times, and you get an effect, you know, for each time. This card seems really good in an aggressive deck.
Yeah, I love any card that when you draw it early, if you need a play, you have a thing that you can play, which is really nice. And then the later you draw it, you don't get punished for drawing a 2-drop later in the game because it just gets better. And I think that those cards make your deck overall just so much stronger. I also like that this is really good with any sort of flicker or like return from the graveyard type effect. Your creature, you play it on turn 4, it's fine. Then you later, you know, play it on 6 or whatever when you flicker it, and it just gets infinitely better. And if you're flickering it with some sort of an ability, then, you know, you get to actually use its ability one more time, right?
And I'm just always bumping up any 2-drop that I can draw on turn 10 and still be okay with it.
Yeah, that's one of the major things I think that really increases the power of a deck is when your curve-filling cards don't punish you for quality later in the game, which I really,
Now, is
really
this a
love.
great card? Is this a great card to draw late on an empty board? No. But it's fine. Find me a 2-drop that is. There aren't many.
But is this a great 2-drop to draw on turn 10 on a board stall deck?
Oh, yeah.
Major.
Yeah, this swings the games from, you know, parity to you just win. You know, and remember, those counters you get include itself. You know, it's all creatures, not other creatures. So it's not sitting there as a vulnerable 3/1 at that point. It's can still die, but at least it's a 5/3 or a 6/4 or a 4/2.
Yeah, definitely. What are we thinking score-wise?
I like this as a 4, actually. I think this can just win the game. I mean, granted, you need something else on the board, but I think that's true for a lot of cards. And maybe sometimes just a 6/4 lifelinker does win it.
Yeah, I think it's a 4, and then, you know, in any deck, it's going to be like a 4, unless it's Yanks' decks with 2 creatures. But in any deck that I'm playing, this is going to be a 4. And with how many token synergies we're seeing in the format, this could just be a 5 and ends the game. Counter it or you lose. But that's not going to be the case for most decks, so I'm pretty happy at a 4. All right, moving along, we have Loyal Griff. We have a 2/2 for 3 flash flying. When it enters the battlefield, you may return another creature you control to its owner's hand. So anti-removal, bounces it out of any sort of like enchantment removal, which is pretty sweet. And yeah, you just hold this open when you've got your bomb on the board. Feels pretty good. And if they're on top deck mode, then you flash it in and just make it another like aggressive thing that they need to deal with. I think there's nothing not to like about this card.
Yeah, 3-mana 2/2 flyer without everything else is always playable.
Yeah, and it says may. It's not a requirement. So like if you are ahead on board in some sort of Boros thing, yeah, just play it. Get in.
Yeah, this card just has all sorts of utility attached to it. You can do so many things with it.
Yeah, this for me is like a 3 to a 3/5. I'm actually kind of high on this card, I think.
Yeah, I think I've got it as a 3. But if we start seeing a lot more enchantment removal, like in the pacifism mold, not the
sleep,
not the banishing light or borrowed time in this set mold, then I think that goes up more.
Well, it still is, even in borrowed time, it's still relevant if they're casting it at that time. It's not good after the fact, like it would be in a sleep sort of effect, right? But if, it still can interact with that in the turn that it's cast, which I like.
Yes, true.
All right, I'm going to give it a 3. All right, guys, we have the... I'll let you take this one. It's kind of tiny.
Lunark Veteran, 1 mana for a 1/1 human cleric. Whenever another creature's under the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. So another addition to Soul Sisters decks. And it has Disturb for 1 and a white, which would give you the Luminous Phantom. 1/1 flyer. Whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, you gain a life. So life gain all around with this card.
Interesting. It is a 1/1 flying spirit for 2 mana, which is fine. It's a 1/1 on its own that's gaining life. So, as we get through the set, we're going to see what sort of life gain triggers there are. But yeah, that's pretty nifty. It for only 1 mana is pretty good against the more aggressive decks. We've seen 2 X1s already and a lot of 1/1 tokens. And it comes back and does some more stuff. I'm fine with this card.
Yeah, I think we need to see there to be actual life gain themes for this card to actually be good, but it's playable either way.
Yes, whether or not it is good and winning the game, sort of like the green one we saw in the last set, right? That card had a lot of things around it that made it very good, but like if I'm playing a white spirits deck or something, any aggressive deck is usually the threat for those. So if you're gaining like 3 to 4 health when this thing is out in play, like that could drastically swing the race in your favor when you're playing like the blue-whites flyer deck. So, I mean, I'm happy to play it.
Yeah, I think I'm a little less happy than you to play it, but I'm okay with the card. It's not unplayable by any means.
Yeah, I think it's like a 2 to a 2/5, and then with the life gain synergies, if they exist, then we go up a bit.
Yeah, I think I'm like a half point lower than you in like that 1.5 to 2, but with the ability to go up if we see a bunch of.
That makes sense. It's a creature, and I'm usually a half point higher on creatures than you.
It is true. Creatures are kind of boring. I like just making people cry by countering their things.
I'm going to kick you in the shins. How do you sleep at night? All right,
I can't sleep.
Horrible person. Morning Patrol. We have a 2/3 Vigilance for 3, already fine. It has Disturbed for 4 mana, 3 and a white. And when you play it from your graveyard, it then becomes a Flying Vigilance 2/1 for 4 mana. And when it gets exiled, it goes away. Or when it dies, it gets exiled. So this is a little worse than the one we saw earlier that was like similar mana cost for a 2/1 First Striker. But this is also common. And the front side is a little bit better because the 2/3 for 3 mana with Vigilance is already kind of like baseline plus, filler plus, which is usually a 2.
Yeah, I'm fine with this card. Again, I think this is just about as vanilla as you can get for a Disturb card.
Yeah, I think that this is actually one of the ones where I feel like the front side is actually carrying its own weight. And then the backside is kind of underwhelming for me. It's kind of the flip of what we've been seeing in the past. We're seeing like a very underwhelming front side, and then you get a little bit more of a payoff in the back end. But I mean, that said, I still think it's fine. I think it's like a 2/5 if you have any synergies, because it does give you that half card on the back later in the game, which is nice.
I agreed. It has adorable flavor text with the dog.
Read it, read it, read it.
It's creepy out the first front side. It's creepy out here, isn't it, boy? I always feel like someone's watching us. Then you flip to the backside. The spirit's holding the dog's head. You could see the spirits all along, couldn't you? Well, now I can too.
Oh, it's so cute. He's So cute. Oh, its owner is dead. And he's giving him good boy scritches. That's the owner in the backside.
Yep.
That's cute and awful.
Yeah. Plus, I just enjoy morning and morning as the flip name.
All right, Odric's Outrider. I'm going to try to speed us up. We're over an hour already. Odric's Outrider, or another creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Okay, so it's a 2/4 for 4 that's going to automatically, when it dies, give a +1/+1 counter to something else. So you could say it's like a 3/5 worth of power. But if you are, in a little bit more of a go wide strategy, which this seems to be the format for it, there's a lot of tokens, and your creatures die twice when they're disturbed, which white has a ton of. So this is pretty sweet.
Yeah, remember when the second time on disturb cards, they get exiled instead, so that would not trigger. But
I thought it was if they would enter the graveyard, they'd get exiled instead, but doesn't it still die?
I believe it has to go to the graveyard to die.
Oh.
And it does not.
Oh, okay, well that doesn't work. But there's still a crap ton of counters, so it's still fine. I thought they would still die and get exiled instead of going to the graveyard.
Yeah, it's still a good card because if this isn't the thing that dies first, right, you start getting multiple triggers off of it.
Yes. That's why I was saying at its worst, it's a 3/5 in power, basically. Unless that you don't have another creature, but...
Yeah, now, the one thing I'm a little concerned about is this 4-drop slot getting kind of clogged up in white. But I think this is probably near the top end of the ones we've seen.
Yeah, honestly, in previous sets, like, let's say 2 years ago, I thought that the 3-drop slot was always the place where we were getting a lot of chunked up mana bases. But in the last 2 years, I've been seeing the 4-drop slot really just jam-packed of cards. And I feel like that's sort of where the game is right now. So I'm not as worried about that, just because it feels to be pretty common.
Yeah, I think we'd have to see how the rest of the set goes, because if it's only in white and every other color doesn't have 4s, it doesn't matter anyway. But
yep, it synergizes well with what white's wanting to do. I think this is a 3 to a 3/5 based on like creature count.
Agreed.
All right, moving right along, guys. All right, Ritual Guardian, 3 mana, 3/2 with Coven. If you have the appropriate amount of different powers, then it gains lifelink until end of turn. That is minimal upside, I think. It still dies. You gain 3 life. Great. Vanilla plus?
Yeah, as I said, it's not unplayable, but this is kind of a unimpressive Coven bonus.
2?
Yep.
All right, Ritual of Hope, 2 mana. Creatures you control get +1/+1 till end of turn. With Coven, if you control 3 or more creatures. This is not at the beginning of combat, it just says Coven. If you do this thing, it doesn't say at the beginning of combat, so you can trigger the Coven not at the beginning of combat, which is the first time we've seen that. Creatures get +2/+1 instead, and with how many like tokens there are in the set, this is the widest set we've seen so far in the last couple of years.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm never very high on these type of sort of instant speed Anthem effects.
Because your decks have 2 creatures in them.
Oh, exactly. I was to say, why am I paying 2 mana just to give 2 things +1/+1? That's kind of boring.
But 2 mana at instant speed, 2/1 Anthem? That's nuts. That's going to win me so many games.
I only have 2 creatures, so I can't get Coven.
You are anti-fun, man.
This card's fine. All joking aside.
It's going to be a 2 or a 3, depending on your creature count. Pretty straightforward pump spell. You're going to know when you want to use it.
Yeah.
All right, Search Party Captain. So we've got a human soldier for 4 mana. It is a 2/2. This spell costs 1 less for each creature you attacked with this turn. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card, so it replaces itself.
Yeah, well, we were just talking about 4-drop slot getting clogged up, and I look and see 4 mana 2/2. I'm like, okay, this maybe is the one I'm not going to play. And then I go, oh wait, replaces itself. Never mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be good for those go wide strategies where you want a lot of bodies. It gives you another card to continue getting your body or draw your anthem card, right? No, nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I like this card. It's you only need to attack with one thing, and then you've got the 3 mana 2/2 draw card. We just played 3 mana 2/1 draw card.
Yeah,
it gained a life as well, which was relevant, but take the point of power or point of toughness as well in exchange.
Card's fine. I'm thinking like a 2/5/3.
Yeah. I think if we hadn't seen so many good 4-drops, I'd probably have it at 3, but I've got it as a 2/5.
All right. I'll let you take this one.
Sigarda's Splendor, 2 white enchantment. As Sigarda's Splendor enters the battlefield, note your life total, which is a phrase I've never seen on a Magic card before. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card if your life total is greater than or equal to the last noted total for Sigarda's Splendor. Then note your life total. Whenever you cast a white spell, you gain a life.
So if it's greater, you draw a card. And then whenever you cast a white spell, you gain a life. Okay. So long as you're casting more white spells than you're taking damage, you're going to be gaining a card every turn, right? As you play one white spell per turn, and it kind of enables itself because you're drawing twice as many cards, right? So it's helping you draw those white spells. It does say white spells, so that includes creatures. It doesn't say, instant or sorcery or anything like that. So there's a lot of white stuff.
Yeah, I mean, this is the only life gain payoff we've seen so far. One hand, it's a 4 mana do nothing when it enters the battlefield, but this can spiral out of control if you can just start drawing a card every single turn.
Yeah, if this was like a 2/2 flyer for 4, this would be kind of nutso, but it, again, is a 4 mana do nothing. If you're on top deck mode, it's a bit terrible draw. If you are being beat down by an aggressive deck, it's a terrible play on turn 4. This is definitely something that needs to be played in longer, grindier games, and I don't know how quick the format's going to be yet. So I don't know. I'm kind of up in the air on this. It reminds me of what was that stupid 4 mana artifact spell that like gained you 2, and if you were 4 life higher than your starting total, you drew a card.
Yeah, I forget the name of it. I know what you're talking about, but I don't
Cosmos
know. This
Elixir.
This definitely feels like a card that could be extremely wrong on. Like this card could be very good. It could also be completely unplayable, especially with how aggressive this format seems to be. Admittedly, we've only looked at white.
This feels more constructed to me.
Yeah. On the flip side, if you play this and you're at an even board state or ahead, it's going to be pretty hard for them to beat it.
I agree. Yep, you have to have even board state and have more cards to play, but it will give you a lot of value over time.
Yeah. So this is going to be a card that's going to swing wildly based on not even your deck, but just based on the board state when you draw it. So yeah, I don't know what to give this card.
I'm on the low. I'm going to give it a 1/5 just because it feels more constructed to me.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and we could be revisiting this in a few weeks and be very wrong
during our mid set review update. Yeah, for sure. That could be one that we need to hedge our bets on a bit. All right. Yeah. So we have a Sigardian Savior, 5 mana, 3/3 flyer, 3 white. That when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, return up to 2 target creature with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. To the battlefield, you say?
Yeah, interesting. This feels like a great top end for that sort of aggressive deck. You just trade off for first handful of turns and you get a 3/3 flyer plus a 3/1 and a 2/2 or something like that.
Yeah, and it's a 3/3 flyer for 5 is like fine-ish. So I like that the white seems to be like this go wide, weak weenies deck, but then this is going to sort of unpunish you for having so many of those weaker creatures in your deck. You get to trade them off early and then bring them back for your go wide strategy payoffs and then just anthem them to death. I like it. I'm in. 4/5?
Yeah, I think so.
Great. Soul Guide Griff. This is a 3/4 flyer for 5 mana. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. I mean, this could be relevant with some things, but I mean, the remove things from graveyard is in limited is often pretty medium. There is flashback in the format, so it will be more relevant than normal. And at 5 mana, you're likely to see some of those things. I think it will come up a bit more than normal, but not as much as it would be in constructed. But
I think you have both flashback and disturb in this set.
Yeah, that's true. Disturbed as well. Okay, yeah, this is probably just better than I initially thought.
So I think that card is not that is not just trinket text. It can matter. It's not always going to matter. So we're mostly judging this on the 3/4 flyer, which I'm fine with.
In most sets, I think that is like irrelevant text, which is kind of why there's that knee-jerk reaction where it's like, okay, this doesn't really come in handy. But you're right, disturbed and flashback. I thought about the flashback, but I mean, you're right. Some of those disturbed costs are like 6 mana for like little weenie things that it's going to take forever for them to cast. So it's likely that you're going to catch them with something in their graveyard. I like this card.
Yeah, I think this, it's 3 power flyers can be game winners, even if they don't look that impressive, just because they might not be able to deal with them.
And 4 mana creatures, or 4 mana, 4 toughness creatures is a solid blocker too.
Yep, and I took a glance at the removal in this set, and it does seem like 4 is a pretty good spot to be. There's a few 3 damage spells, there's a few 2 mana, 2 damage or -2/-2 effects, but there didn't seem to be any. You kind of jump from 3 to 5 on the removal spectrum. So 4 blanks a lot of that common removal.
All right, so I'm looking at like a 3.
Yep, I got it as a 3.
All right, sounds good. Moving along. Sun Gold Barrage. We have an instant 3 mana, destroy target creature with toughness 4 or greater. Normally it's power. That's interesting.
Yeah, you normally get that 4 mana instant power 4 or greater spell, like a Smite the Monstrous or spells like that. This card's fine. 3 mana instant speed removal. I'm going to play this card. I'm not going to want 4 of them, but I'm going to play it.
Yeah, the toughness is a bit weird. I think, like, in the white deck, we're not seeing a ton of things that this is going to be relevant against. Like that bird, the rare card, the rare X4 or whatever. But, like, most of the things are a bit cheaper, so this is something we might maybe board out. But, like, I'm still likely playing this.
Yeah, agreed. It's definitely not going to be at its best against white. But you're thrilled to have multiple of these if you're playing green against green.
Yes. So this is kind of like a weird card. I don't love it. It's almost like a split rating. I don't know, because like you said, it is going to be really good against some decks and really bad against others, which makes me think it's like a sideboard card. But like, I'm probably still playing it in any deck main, but not a ton of them. This is a weird one for me.
I feel like the only deck where you're not going to have a decent number of targets in this is like straight Boros.
Yeah, or white blue usually has like a bunch of like flyers with no back end.
Yeah, they usually have some stuff, like you get like those 3/5 or 3/6 blockers on the ground you need to clear out of the way.
That's true.
But yeah, it's not at its best against white blue either. But I mean, I think it's going to be pretty good against all of the non-white archetypes, I would imagine.
So 3?
Yeah, I think it's a 3, but it's a 3 with diminishing returns. You don't want a bunch of these.
Sounds good. Sun Gold Sentinel, 2 mana, 3/2. When Sun Gold Sentinel enters the battlefield or attacks, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. Love it. With Coven for 2 mana, choose a color. It gains hexproof from the color and can't be blocked by creatures of that color. Activate you. So it doesn't say most of the Covens again are when you attack. This one doesn't say that. So if you have Coven, you could just give it protection, which is pretty sweet. This card seems nuts.
Yeah, I mean, 2 mana 3/2 on its own, you're already above rate just without reading any of the other text on this card. And you're getting something out of a graveyard, which we just talked about could be relevant. And you got a chance to just start giving yourself protection from things.
Yeah.
It's not officially protection, but it's almost all the way there.
And a lot of times your opponent's just going to have 1 color of creatures, like, 2 black creatures or whatever, and you could just go in and you don't need to be in your entering your combat step to trigger the Coven, letting you have protection from removal and stuff as well. This is great. I love this card.
Yeah, I've got it as a 4.
I think it's a 4 as well. The only reason, like, it's in some situations going to be strong enough to win a game on its own, but it is still kind of small. You still have to keep those creatures open, that mana open to protect it, and oftentimes maybe they'll just have both color creatures and this doesn't get in. So, you know, it isn't strong enough to just win the game if they don't answer it necessarily, but that's kind of the difference between a 4 and a 5, but it is quite premium. All right, Sunset Revelry. We have a sorcery for 2 mana. If an opponent has more life than you, gain 4 life. If an opponent controls more creatures than you, create 2 1/1s. If an opponent has more cards in hand, draw a card. Interesting.
Yeah, I kind of hate this card.
I like this card as a sideboard card.
Yeah, I can definitely see the sideboard card. It's actually probably a decent card in like blue-white.
It's going to be a good card anytime you're going against a Boros or anytime you're going against a white deck.
Yeah.
You're just playing this, you know, on the back foot a little bit. Anytime you're on the draw, this is going to be a good thing to bring in. It's a 23rd playable card in best of 1, and then it is a really good sideboard card that I'm happy to have like 1 or 2 of in every single white deck. Then you just board it in against Boros.
Yeah, it's also an interesting card. You can just also kind of sideboard it in on the play because you're more likely to at least be able to replace itself. Some interesting considerations there, depending on the matchup still, of course.
Your opponent has, oh, I see what you're saying for the bottom text.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I don't think you're going to bring it in just because you're on the play, but I just think it's an interesting consideration along with the other, you know, the matchup, which is more important.
I was thinking if you were on the draw, they're likely to have creatures played before you, and they're likely to be the first to hit you, possibly.
That could be too.
So maybe it's just a good sideboard against aggro decks. Plain and simple.
Yeah, it definitely is, yeah.
All right. I have it as a 1/5.
Agreed.
All right. We have a Thrabian Exorcism, an instant 2 mana. Exile target spirit creature with disturb or enchantment. Spirit creature with disturb or enchantment. I like that it like preemptively gets rid of something with disturb, which is pretty sweet. And then the creatures with disturbed are spirits, so that gets rid of it post disturbed as well.
It's interesting because I'm just scrolling through white, and which is where you're most likely to find spirits outside of the disturb cards. And there's only one non-disturb card that's a spirit, which was the 3/4 flyer. So it's really like those two things are both targeting the disturb card.
Yes.
You have to word it that way so you can get either side of it, but...
And then you have an enchantment bonus. Like, this still feels very sideboardy to me, but it is a bit flexible. And we'll have to see, like, how many, like, maybe spirits black has.
Yeah, and the fact that disturb is, I believe, in all 5 colors helps.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd probably be okay in best of 1 running one of these, but I'm not going out of my way to grab it.
It's a 2, it's a 23rd playable.
I love to have it in my sideboard.
Yes, 23rd playable. 2, cut it if you can. Happy to have 2 of these in my sideboard for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Unruly Mob, 2 mana, 1/1. Whenever another creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on it. This is something we've seen semi-recently, right? When was that?
Unruly Mob.
Wasn't that long ago.
It was printed in original Innistrad, and then we saw it again in Shadows.
Okay, so Shadows is what I was thinking. Yeah, I think this is fine. It's not good. It's going to be really good for like the token decks because it doesn't say non-token creature dies. So if you're pumping out a dude every turn, we're pretty happy, but it's just pretty much kind of filler. I cut it in most decks, but I will say again, this is the most go wide format I've seen in a long time. So I think that this is better than we've seen in the past.
I feel like I have some sort of PTSD from this card because it looks not good on its face, but I'm just like looking at it and I'm scared of it.
Like, you know you're going to die to it, right? Like, it's going to just be a 4/4 too soon and then just be not... Like, it'll very quickly get to the point where you can't deal with this.
It's like it's a 1/1. I'll kill something else. Now it's a 2/2. I'll still kill something else, and all of a sudden, combat happens and it's a 6/6. Like,
oops.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is going to be a kind of a split rating card. I'm not going to give it a split rating. I'm just going to give it a 2/5. But like, it is going to be a 1 in Yanks' deck. It's going to be probably a 4 in my deck. A little exaggeration there, but you get the point.
One thing to note though is that this works really well with decayed tokens.
Ooh, spicy. Good call. Yeah, that's going to be great. That's true. All right. Vanquish the Horde, a bajillion mana spell, sorcery, costs 1 less for each creature on the battlefield. Destroy all creatures. It says all creatures for 1 less for each creature on the battlefield, not that you control. So if your opponent has like a bajillion dudes, this is like free and great.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of love this card.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to have any creatures, so I'm just killing all of theirs.
And if you're wrathing, you're probably not wanting to wrath unless your opponent has 3 or 4 creatures, meaning that this is probably, you know, very reasonably costed at like 5 or 4 mana.
Yeah, this harkens back to Blasphemous Act, which was a red card, but 8 and a red from an original Innistrad, which cost 1 less for each creature on the battlefield, and was basically a wrath that dealt 13 to everything. Now this one can only get down to 2 mana, not 1, because it's going to always be at least double white. But no, this card's great.
Yeah. What are we thinking? 4?
So 4. I mean, you're not going to particularly want this in your really aggressive Boros deck, but outside of that, like just having that reset button, even in an aggressive deck, an aggressive draft deck sometimes does fall behind.
Yes, and in disturbed formats where you're like, okay, wrath your big green things with my Boros deck, you're at 5, bring back my disturbed spirits, and then finish you off. Seems pretty great.
Yeah, no, I really like this card.
All right.
I did have to restrain myself from yelling for the Horde, though.
Fair. All right, guys. So that wraps up our white cards. This is way over what we expected white to take time-wise. We will try to speed it up for blue. So I hope you guys liked it. Let me know in the comment sections below what you think of white in this format. And we'll go ahead and be posting blue here shortly. So by the time you finish this, it should be up. Thank you guys again for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys. I'd like to give a special thank you to those of you who have signed up for our Patreon. I couldn't make this content without you. Also to Cool Stuff Inc. and KMC Sleeves for supporting the channel as well. Definitely check them out and use our discount codes to support the channel.